The art of illusion crosses with comedy and the Las Vegas Strip in our next movie review. Hello to everyone tuning in and welcome back once again to both Real Screen Reviews and We Live Film. I am movie critic Nick Iacobucci and our next review is for The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. This film opened in wide release on Friday, March 15th, 2013, and it stars Steve Carell, Steve Bucemi, Olivia Wilde, and Jim Carrey. The Incredible Burt Wonderstone comes to us from first-time feature filmmaker Don Scardino, the longtime television director whose career goes all the way back to Another World in 1964. This tale tells of successful Las Vegas magicians Burt Wonderstone and Anton Marvelton and how that success is now being threatened. An off-the-hook, new and hip illusionist is making a name for himself and making Burt Wonderstone look stale in comparison. Renegade and street magician Steve Gray holds one outrageous stunt after the next until he finally pushes Burt and Anton to challenge their love of magic. Well, people, unfortunately, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone doesn't pull anything new out of its hat, but it does entertain enough and does more than just make your ticket money disappear. Is it funny? Yes. Is it great? No. This feature is one of those mediocre movies almost all the way around, but unfortunately with Steve Carell and Jim Carrey, you couldn't help but have high expectations going into it. I guess they'll have to take it right from there. Steve Carell does have some genuinely good moments, but there is zero originality here. Carell comes off as solid enough, but there is little to even start with. Bucemi is also strong and funny in his portrayal as the sidekick, but when you actually are a sidekick to both Jim Carrey and Steve Carell, it's easy to get lost in the film real quick. For me, the pleasant surprise in Burt Wonderstone comes in the form of Olivia Wilde, and what a lovely form that is. She must be taking lessons from her fiancé, Jason Sudeikis, because she was funny and subtle, her timing was good, and this was a very credible and a very good comedic role for Olivia Wilde. Now this takes me to Jim Carrey, and in typical Jim Carrey fashion, he is completely over the top. I thought that Carrey was standout funny and ends up being one of the film's brighter spots. He performs the most outrageous stunts and comes off as a flamboyant David Blaine. Now, I've heard other critics complain about this character as being too obnoxious, but I liked him very much, and I think that this is his best turn on the big screen in more than a few years. There are also good secondary players like Alan Arkin, James Gandolfini, Jay Moore, and of course, David Copperfield shows up to make an appearance as well. David Copperfield. I will say for me that the film felt restrained because of its PG-13 rating, and they really could have went into some risky places, but instead chose to play it 100% safe. Then I felt that the performers were sometimes running away with the film, and it felt like they were doing this right under the nose of director Don Scardino. For me, Burt Wonderstone lacked the tightness missing from other great over-the-top comedies like Liar Liar or The Birdcage. His direction is also very uneven, mixing very odd moments with just as many that are humorous, and obviously it's much more difficult directing a feature film than it is directing an episode of television. Now, my biggest complaint with this project on a whole is the disappointment in the end result of the collaboration between Steve Carell and Jim Carrey. Once again, I would have thought this to be a magical conjunction, pun intended, but it is anything but. Also, at times, these guys, plus Bucemi, can't save what is or isn't happening on screen, and with all of that talent, that's just plain sad. At 1 hour and 40 minutes, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone isn't too long and it isn't too short. It isn't a good movie and it isn't a bad movie. And for as recycled as the entire project is, I thought that it could have been a whole lot worse. Overall, this film is not completely horrible. At least it achieves some genuine tender scenes as well as some good belly laughs. If I had to pick a word to gently compliment and describe this movie, I would use the word silly. It is filled with over-the-top physical comedy and delivered by some of the best physical comedians. However, in the end, this is really just a weak formula film and pretty much basic Hollywood genre fluff. Nick's Real Screen Review is right down the middle on this one with 2 stars out of 4, and that's for the funny yet forgettable comedy, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time that I have today, and thank you so very much for stopping by. If you have enjoyed this review, please click like below and give me a thumbs up, or subscribe to either or both We Live Film or Real Screen Reviews if you haven't yet already. I'm sure that I'll be returning soon enough with more movie and trailer reviews, and until then, remember, this is Nick Iacobucci saying I'm not always right, but only when it comes to the movies, and thank you for your attention.